of the most admirable chasers you could possibly wish to see.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Racehour, brought to you with our friends at Gambling.com. And for the first time this season, all the way through to the Cheltenham Preview Night and beyond, we are delighted to say we're now sponsored by BetMGM. Diarmuid Nolan is here. BetMGM on board, Diarmuid.
Hello, Dino. Yeah, fantastic news. They're one of the big dogs over in the US, and they're properly launching now in the UK. They're sponsoring this weekend, as Tanya informed us pre-recording.
Big weekend for them, yeah.
Big weekend and a big season ahead, yeah. So hopefully we can deliver a few winners against them, please God.
Hey, anyone listening to this podcast last week will know that I said all the racing will be off. So I hope they get, a little bit of luck. Like, there's a lot of frost around. This doesn't. I think what was the line I came out with? Wasn't a cover on planet Earth that could save the racing. But I think Stephen put me right, so maybe they'll get a bit of luck. Hopefully they do. Do check out all the latest offers with BetMGM. All the details on the screen, of course. Bet 10 get 40, and they're the home of the daily racing books. So we'll have lots more from them coming during the season. Dermo, delighted to say that this week we've brought Mr. Cass back. Stephen Cass, you're here again.
Yes, yeah. And you've gone to me first. Or no, you went to Dermo. Sorry, yeah, I was surprised.
Always
there.
Dermo first. Always.
And you've put me on with a grown up as well. So I'm really feeling part of the gang now. 7 or 8 years in, or however long we're doing it, I'm finally on with
someone you're referring to is not me or Dem. That's pretty
someone
clear.
with a bit of gravitas.
That's very harsh on poor Paddy. That's very harsh.
Oh God, Paddy Haskell. Yeah, well, he'll be back. He'll be back.
He'll be back next week. Yeah, back.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. No, it's Tanya Stevenson is back on. Tanya, how are you?
Yeah, very well indeed. Really looking forward to the chat. I think racing will be on this week. The forecasts are really contradictory, so I won't be confident, but they raise the temperatures a lot earlier than they thought. So Friday they raise, so maybe Saturday and Sunday will be luckier than we think.
Yep. Well, let's hope so, because there's some good stuff on this weekend. It'd be great to get it all on. We've had some good racing since we last spoke, of course, on here, and we tried to find a few winners. I want to talk about some of the ones that went on, because this week's edition, this earlier edition in the week of the Racehour, is going to be all about the Novice Hurdle division, with Cheltenham just 8 weeks away. Can you believe that? Not too long. So we're going to cover, of course, Supreme, Ballymore. We're going to do a bit of the Albert Bartlett. We're going to touch on the Triumph. See if there are any anti-post picks we should pull out of the ether right now. So that's what we're going to do. But before we do that, we normally have a little catch up. Dom, I know you wanted to maybe highlight something that happened on social media. There was a furore around it. Mr. Callan in his tweet.
Yeah, an absolutely moronic tweet. It really was. And as Alex from AK Bets said, it was very funny because they spent their whole time denying that it was bullying, and then Neil Callan's tweet pretty much confirmed that it was in fact bullying. And that, he basically said, for anyone that somehow missed it, that, if it was a male rather than a female, would it have got as much attention? 100% it would have. Definitely would have. There's absolutely no doubt at all. It was the fact that it went on so long is why this case has kind of stuck on so much. But, it is just, absolutely ridiculous altogether. And the worst part of all of this, Dean, is that the case is over. Robbie Dunn has served his time. Maybe his lack of contrition was one thing, but he served his time. It's from his point of view, this isn't even about him. It's the really disappointing continued reaction from senior jockeys such as Neil Callan, etc., and plenty of others to this, trying to bury it, trying to make out nearly that, Bryony was precious. Horse racing just needs to realise, these people need to realise it's not the 1950s anymore. Football and every other sport has moved on from this, Dean. In the 80s, young footballers used to clean the senior players' boots, and then it was decided that, that wasn't right really to have them around that environment. Football moved on. Every other sport has moved past this prehistoric way of locker room banter and all this sort of stuff. Every sport is trying to move past this, and most of them have. For some reason, jockeys seem to think that this is still the 1950s and that the behavior of that is completely okay. And it just has really annoyed me. The continued thing is that poor O'Brien seems to just take it. And the article from David Walsh was excellent. And it's just incredible that this is still going on. She's still being treated the way that she is. Her rides have dropped off massively. And it's incredible. And the final point on this is that I keep reading from these middle-aged men basically on Twitter saying, "Oh, I've heard though that Bryony Frost was a bit precious, and she wasn't easy." That doesn't matter in a bullying case. We've all worked with people that we didn't like, and that's normal part of life. I don't know anything about Bryony. I've spent more time with Lionel Messi, I'd say, than I have with Bryony Frost. But it doesn't matter how personally someone likes someone or doesn't like someone. The bullying case happened. There was witnesses on Bryony's side, that worker at Market Raising, who heard the abuse she took from Robbie Dunn. The argument that Bryony Frost, she was precious and this and that. I read plenty of them. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. This is a bullying case. And the PGA having Neil Callan on their board is ultimately very embarrassing now. And it's absolutely ridiculous. We spend so much time talking about how horse racing can bring in a new audience. We've way too much to fix internally before we start talking about that. And this is one of the major ones, Dean. It really is.
Fair. I thought it was an absolutely moronic tweet. Got loads of stick for it, left it up for best part of a day and a half, and then suddenly it's gone. But yeah, did feel the article that came out as well around Bryony and the rides dropping off. Hey, look, it's a nasty situation. Fair play for weighing in on it, Dermo. I know that's another podcast, but that's what you did. Fair enough. Okay, look, I did, before we do get stuck into the Novice Hurdle division, 8 weeks out from Cheltenham. Anyone wanted to pick out anything from the weekend? I had one horse I wanted to talk about. I think there might be a bit of disagreement about it, but I don't mind. That's all good. Was there an eye catcher for you, Stephen, from the weekend?
Not really an eye catcher with the view down the line. No, it was good racing in its own right. I thought that Bill Joyce of John Joe O'Neill in the bumper was plenty green at Warwick. I'd say he has lots of ability. John Joe's quite good when he gets a good bumper horse, so he could be one to watch, maybe for the entry bumper or something like that. I thought Galia Delato ran a lovely race, and she will probably be on a mark now that would sneak her into a Grand National. And with the ground, the little bit of cut they'll have at entry, I think she'd have a chance in a national if she can get into a rhythm. That would kind of be the two I would take away.
Yeah, it was a good flag from you on the previous pod to put her up. Obviously, only just coming up short, but ran an absolute belter. Demo, anything your side?
Mystical Power I thought was outstanding, but obviously we'll talk about him more in the Novice Hurdle division. But I also thought that Banbridge was one hell of a reappearance. He'll only improve for that if the ground is good in the Ryanair. As much as I've been stage star all season, I'd be struggling now to move away from Banbridge if the ground was good. So he's the kind of horse that, you'd wait for a shorter price on the day, knowing that he has his right ground, because once he has that ground, he's electric. And he's a Cheltenham Festival winner before as well. And yeah, Dean, I really liked what he did. Really, really liked.
Very good. Previous friend of the podcast, of course, JJ Slevin was on board and was very complimentary afterwards. I think they expected it to run well. You might have surprised them even a little bit, just how forward and everything was good in Banbridge camp. So fair play to them. Definitely one for taking forward. Tanya, what did you make of the weekend? Was there anything that stood out to you? Obviously, you put up a nice winner on Gambling.com with Sam Brown. Fair play. Nice price and went and got the job done. Handicap just about right to get it done. But that might not be the one you're going to talk about.
No, I really did like the weekend. What we found out, obviously, maybe that Venetia's out of form now. It proves it on the stats. The percentage of her strike rates has gone out. It'll come back. It's just all cyclical. Horse that a couple of horses I like to point out. First of all, an obvious one in Caliph de Burley, the Paul Nicholls runner that looked a huge machine, didn't it? And it has been pointed out, there'll be an entry at Cheltenham, but it's unlikely to go there. This was bought for the Gold Cup, so maybe start rattling people's cages and ask for the odds in future Gold Cups, because that probably will win a Gold Cup. It just treated hurdles with contempt. I like to flag up a horse that got not really placed even. The race that was won by Uncle Phil, I thought Saint Wa ran a superb race absolute superb race in the fact that it kept making mistakes and yet still ploughed on. And looking at Saint Wa's CV, he's got an excellent record at the Cheltenham Festival, been there 3 times and been in the winners' enclosure and placed on a couple of occasions. Interesting entries come the Dublin Festival. I sense that he could even place at the Dublin Festival, but look out for Saint Wa at the Cheltenham Festival. I'd like an each way at the Dublin Festival, wherever he turns up, because that was a brilliant run by him. And certainly there is my eye catcher, Saint Ra. I don't think he was entitled to get as close as he was, but he did, and I really loved him.
Music to the ears of Stephen Cass and Devon Nolan have been waxing about Saint Wa. It's going to come together. So there's a plan afoot, I would imagine, for that horse.
Grand annual.
Right. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. They'll get in there in good order, you would imagine, and then the money would flow. that's what you're looking for.
Could go plate either, definitely. You know,
Could.
like his best run last season was at Aintree over 2.5.
2-4, fair.
Don't dismiss him though at the Dublin Festival, because he could just get into the frame there. He doesn't. It could be really highly. Well, you can't call him highly tried because he runs in Grade 1s. So, but he could just find himself, because they'll all cut each other's throats out in front. They just bundle out in front, and he'll just come through for a place.
Yep. Happy days. Sampwire on the list. I thought, and I know he went off 11-4 favourite for the Lanzarote, but Impose Trois, I thought, ran a massive race.
Oh, yeah.
And what's interesting about the way that he was ridden is I thought he got, I know there's no doubt about it, they were obviously trying to win the contest, but he got a quiet ride in the inside. When they just got going, thought he was a little bit tapped, got a tiny bit hampered coming around the final bend. And I just think there's plenty more to come from him. I would not be writing him off. Plenty of people will see him get beat as a favourite in a race like that and go, oh, maybe that's as good as he is. I think there's plenty more. They just need to let him loose. A little bit like Lucia, who was ridden similarly a couple of times before being let go from the front and allowed to storm home. Impose Trois, plenty more to come, I would imagine. We see what happens with that one. I did think that was a good run in defeat. Okay, let's get stuck into the novice division then ahead of Cheltenham. And we've got to start with the Supreme Novices Hurdle. The market did take a shake-up because we saw Mystical Power. We haven't seen Jericho de Repine for a little while. Ballyburn, of course, Caldwell, Potter. It was very good last time we saw that. In fact, might even have the top rating for some of these in terms of what we're looking at for a Supreme at the minute. Dermo, you've already mentioned Mystical Power, so I'll come to you first. It was an impressive run that we saw there, and now sits atop of a very open Supreme.
Yeah, I saw people after the race trying to say that he'd end up in the Ballymore because of his trainer and owner, but he didn't look like a horse to me that wanted to be going open trip just yet. He was plenty quick. He was very, very fast. Mark Walsh's confidence was extremely notable. You know, he just held him off them and then came through. His jumping can definitely improve. With a lot of willies, the jumping he doesn't school them a whole pile, so they do tend to improve for racing. He's plenty short enough now, Dean, at 4-1.
Yeah.
It does show how open this kind of market is. I mean, you know, you've got him and Jericho, the Rapine, just further showing how strong a hand that JP has over this market now at the moment. And obviously a dream to shares in a race to get there. But I mean, if he ended up with them three in a Supreme, it'd be hard to back against him. Both of those horses have been really impressive. Jericho de Repine is kind of hard to judge, Dean. He's been fantastic, but they've been two dawdles. And I'm not going to get stuck in against him like I did with Shishkin at Constitution Hill based off trends and everything else. I definitely wouldn't be putting anyone off him, but at the odds, considering what he's done so far in his career, I'm happy enough to kind of shirk him. This is one hell of a Supreme from a betting point of view. We haven't had a Supreme this open in quite a while, really, bar maybe Classical Dreams year maybe was the last really open one. And it just feels like this market still is undecided. The DRF, etc., could really kick this on even more. At the moment, the kind of two at the odds that I like, Dean, one of them at 14-1 with BetMGM is Far and Glory, who I think his form is only getting stronger. I know Antubber let it down the last day, but he didn't look right to me. King of Kingsfield has come out of that Royal Bond and won since as well. Fire and Glory, I do believe he was going to win at Aintree. I know that Django Bay kept finding, but he was going very, very easily altogether, and I do think that he would have won that day. So his odds are probably big enough, considering had he won that, he'd be a margin shorter. At 14-1, the strong pace will suit him. He's a very, very good horse from an each way point of view. I just think he's a very smooth one. And then at huge odds, Dean, about a 25-1 with BetMGM. Sorry, at huge odds. That's not Stephen Cass's huge odds. Sorry, but for me, I thought Daddy Longlegs a bit of an overreaction to his run at Christmas. I thought he was very good on the run before that. And at Christmas time, he drifted like a barge with the ground. He didn't jump out of it. He's definitely ground dependent. He's another one that at 25-1, I'm happy to find out whether or not, you know, he gets the right conditions. But he was absolutely awe-inspiring on the run before that. Last time at Christmas, the ground just went, when he was behind Caldwell Potter, the ground would have really suited that winner. It definitely did not suit him. He'll be one that I think could go very well at the DRF, where we do expect always to have better ground. Leopardstown dries out like nothing else, really. So Daddy Longlegs, at 25-1 and Far and Glory at 14-1, Dean, would be my 2 bullets at the moment.
Yep, fair. And, at this point, we are looking for where the ones are longer in the market than they should be. We know a good bit about the ones at the top, and you have to kind of like either join the side and stick with it until the race comes around, or try and look for these. Far and Glory is an interesting one, but I know Connections will be super brave with where they go. They obviously already went to Aintree and came unstuck, but in a race, I think they were going to win. If they get that one back, he is very, very lively. Tanya, what do you make of the Supreme picture at the moment?
I think that the weekend, or when Mystic Power ran and won, they were just desperate to put some context in the race and find a favourite. And when Mystic Power did indeed oblige, I think going now in hindsight, looking back, it wouldn't have mattered sense if Mystic Power, the distance it won by, whether it had been a short head or the manner it won by, that was ready and waiting to grab favouritism. It does then sort of give the race a little bit of backbone. Now we can now put sort of interwoven form into use. Now Mystic Power, we didn't see the best of Mystic Power. We just saw the potential, because there was no relevance to tempo. There was sort of no relevance to the number of runners in the race. But you just go on the fact that it's out of Galileo and Annie Power and JP.
And JP's won. Any more royal.
Yeah, JP's won the race twice, but he's certainly been near or close on a further 10 occasions. He's got 10 places in the race, so perhaps he's just wants to keep trying to win it. Of course he would. Jericho de Repene, I thought that was an excellent run at Newbury, where he just went away, or did he go away from Secret Squirrel? But I think that's robust form, because I don't think Secret Squirrel is any fool. I think Secret Squirrel is a horse that has some real potent pace, finishing a finishing kick. They didn't wisely, they didn't utilize it to the maximum. You don't want to use that up, Jericho de Repene or Secret Squirrel, but it put down a marker. You mentioned Far and Glory. I love Far and Glory, and was gutted for Far and Glory in what was the rescheduled, the Tolworth, which is now known as the Formby, a Grade 1. Like we were speaking about Mystic Power and Jericho de Repene. What is wrong with Grade 1 for? And Far and Glory's already won a Grade 1, and the Royal Bond has good record when coming to the Cheltenham Festival. So no surprise he came to Aintree and met another horse that I love in Jago Bay, which had already been beaten Tell Her Name just at Ascot, and then Tell Her Name then won at Huntingdon by a lap, and then didn't appear at Aintree for whatever reason. That was just run a bad run, which then highlights the fact if a horse has a bad run, please, like Daddy Longlegs, just put a line through it, because Tell Her Name has now gone on and won by a distance again. Jago Bay, I just love that horse. It just seems to plough on. And Nicky Henderson's won a few Supremes. I think he's won 5 Supremes. Willie Mullins has won 7. And Jago Bay's at a huge odds. I get Far and Glory. Far and Glory turns up here. It's very hard to not believe that Jago Bay can beat him, because Far and Glory was travelling with so many handfuls, but there was still a long way to go. I'm in the Jago Bay camp, and it's ominous if Far and Glory turns up here. So I've already flagged up Jago Bay for this, and Far and Glory should he disappear to Wednesday. Yep. But yeah, I'll be sticking with Nicky Henderson in this. So sorry, JP, you got some lovely runners in the race, and you probably will beat me. But I am mindful that your horses have been placed and then gone on to win champion hurdles and all sorts since then. So it's no bad thing.
Yeah, it's not always the only target in their careers. He gets very good horses. Supreme sometimes comes a bit soon for some of the very best ones. Jago Bay 33-1 with our sponsors at BetMGM. Okay, Stephen Cass, put some light into your Supreme thinking at this point.
Yeah, I wouldn't be as positive on Mystical Power as the guys. I think he's a bad favourite as favourite goes for the Supreme at this stage. Like Jagaro wouldn't be that highly thought of. Well beaten on his debut, looked okay the next day at Navan, but I don't think he's any great shake. So it's the sexiness of the profile. Like, he didn't jump great. I don't think that matters that much with Willies in a Supreme. They only jump 8 obstacles. Willies could probably kick 2 of them out of the way, or 3 of them, and still win, the way Willies run to the line. Like Champagne Fever was a bad jumper. Faugheen was a terrible jumper. Annie Power was a bit better. Classical Dream, another bad jumper. They all won. So I wouldn't be too worried about the jumping. I would be worried that he got behind the bridle a lot, though. He might get out of his ground. A horse like Jericho de Repine, who's a bit of a travelly thing and a slicker jumper, could have Mystical Power in a lot of trouble. So I'd be quite negative on Mystical Power at the moment, especially given that we've a grade 1 over 2 miles to come at Leopardstown. That's likely to actually give us the favourite. So taking 4-1 at the moment about him wouldn't appeal to me. Ballyburn, he's a bit more in the Champagne Fever mold, but at the same time, he looks a 2.5 miler to me, so he should be going 2.5 mile race. If you ask me, we'll see where he goes at Leopardstown. I doubt they'll go up 2.6, so 2 mile at Leopardstown tell a lot with him. But it kind of gives a nice shape to the betting because the ones at the top can be taken on. Jericho de Repine has been very impressive, but I think, and Tanya nearly alluded to it there, I'm not sure you did or not, Tanya, not to put words in your mouth, but I don't think Secret Squirrel was off the last day.
Yeah. No. It just, I totally agree in the respect that he could have closed in a lot nearer to Jericho de Repine, because on watching his Kempton run, he's got so much more of acceleration after the last, and but yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't know what happened there.
They weren't very hard on him anyway.
No.
Even if you're taking Secret Squirrel, who, oh God, I don't know, like Secret Squirrel, like what he's rated 124.
He'll go to Aintree surely with his
yeah, but I just thought the form of Jericho de Repine isn't there yet either. Look, I think there's 2 bets to be had in the race. One
That's
of them,
what we want.
Yeah, look, a Dream to Share is fine. He is in work and he is working well. It's just like the Piper calls the tune. Frank Berry and JP will decide whether this horse goes in a maiden hurdle and then goes to Cheltenham. But if he does, there is 6-1 non-runner no bet out there, and he's the best horse in the race with the best form. Certainly, I could see him making into a good hurdler. I just think he's a better horse than all these. So they won't be sending him unless they want to go and win the race with him. So I think 6-1 a Dream to Share isn't a bad price. That's out there.
You want the cover of With a Run though at this point,
definitely.
Right? So that's why, because like there's 8 and 10. I think it's 8-1 there with BetMGM, but yeah, you want that cover. I understand.
Yeah, and I think you need that cover. And we're sponsored by BetMGM, so we won't mention the other bookies, but you do have to back that non-runner no bet. And the other one, and there's take a bit of explaining, but I think the form is very good. Arguably the best novice hurdle form so far this year, I would say, is a horse called Slade Steel of Henry de Bromhead's. This horse, he won a bumper, which is rare enough, but getting a bit more common for Henry. Then he was beaten by Ballyburn, but John Gleeson now wasn't his finest hour that day. He had him last and he had him out wide and he had him off the pace, and Patrick then stole the race on Ballyburn. So he was beaten in that race at Punchestown, but his novice hurdle form, I think, is very good. So he beat King of Kingsfield over 2 miles at Naas by 5.5 lengths. We know that that's really strong form. And then he went to Navan in a grade 2 and beat Lecky Watson. Now, I thought Lecky Watson showed up really well in the Lawlers and Naas. Stellar Story was 3rd that day. Stellar Story then went and ran really well behind Loughlin at Limerick. So I think that form is really good. He is only entered over 2 miles at the DRF. He's not entered over 2.6. So my angle with as well as that, the day at Navan. Now, I'm not a big times man, but he was 16 seconds faster than the Fishery Lane over the same course of distance. And looking at relative to the rest of the car at the time was amazing. I think he's a really good animal. He's definitely a stayer at 2 miles. He'll only go if he goes 2 miles at Leopardstown and wins. Otherwise, he's going up trip to the Ballymore. He's 20-1 non-runner no bet. I wouldn't be going near anything that's not non-runner no bet. But I think he could be 3-1 favourite if he goes and wins at Leopardstown well. Or else he's not running. So I think that 20-1 non-runner no bet on Slade Steel is how that'll be my main bet in the race.
Nice, yeah. And of course, the DRF is always the time where so many clues are turned into facts, and that's what you're looking for. So yeah, okay. But interesting, now when he has that entry there, Slade Steel thrown in 25-1, obviously as determined with BetMGM, but non-runner no bet is available in places. Everyone will get there eventually, but they're not there yet. Okay, Slade Steel. The one horse we didn't mention, and I don't know, maybe everyone here knows why, and I don't, is Caldwell Potter. Is it just because it went to Leopardstown and won on desperate ground and won rights off the form? I think they expected it to go and win. I think it did go and win. And what's wrong with that? Anyone have a view?
Well, I'm not sure they expected to go win. They had the favourite in the race, didn't they?
But you remember Jack wrote this one, and his comments afterwards, and this is where I'm getting this from, was that I expected that. I expected I was on the right one. I expected him to come through and do what he did. Like, that's pretty strong. They got good horses.
Yeah. Well, I'd be of the view they're pretty much the same price. Farron Glory's grade 1 form on better ground is better than Caldwell Potter's.
Fair.
And he does look like a real stayer. I mean, it depends on the ground, but yeah, he's a bit like Mighty Potter in a way. He's that kind of.
He's a brother, isn't he? I think.
Well, he is, but he's that profile of a horse going into a Supreme. I know Dermo like Mighty Potter.
Sure did.
Yeah, I'd like. Yeah, I wouldn't like him anyway. I thought he looked like an absolute grinder, and he'll be done for toe.
Okay. All right. And they also, I think Fred Farron Glory, even the day he won the Royal Bond and said that Firefox was the better horse. And we haven't even mentioned that one here. So, that's the thing with novices, though, isn't it? They surprise you on the track. Maybe not always the homework comes through. And you find out what they do when they're in the heat of battle. Some of these battles are getting tougher now as we approach the DRF. Okay, look, we've spun through the Supreme. I think a few interesting ones picked out there. Certainly the bigger price ones I thought were interesting. Daddy Longlegs, don't write that off. Django Bay still in very much in Tanya's thinking. And Slade Steel, a few flyers are possible. Okay, why don't we move on to the Ballymore? We can talk about some of the same horses in here, of course, because Ballyburn has been, mixing around the top of this market. Obviously, the DRF to come. Reading Tommy Wrong was the surprise result recently that shook this one up, Tanya. Caught everyone by surprise.
I think everyone, if even watching the replay, was doing this to Reading Tommy Wrong. We mentioned. He's not a bad jumper. It just hit everything. He's got so much. He had so much pace in between the hurdles, and was able to keep up with his sort of rivals. That's what amazed me. And he's just showed how robust and strong he was. And I watched the replay again and thought, oh no, that can't have won. So fair play to Reading Tommy Wrong. Now, two trains of thought out of that race. Had he have not hit hurdles and sort of seemed hesitant as he approached a hurdle, had he be fluent, how far would he have won? You can have that train of thought, or you can have the train of thought of if he replicates that run. Obviously, it's a really strong run considering those behind him. Surely I know Stephen's already said you can be a bad jumper and still win at Cheltenham. Surely there'll be others in the race that will make use, and he'll make his error. Then he'll catch up the rivals because he's a strong, robust sort. There'll be others in the contest. He certainly posed the question to Il Antarctique. That was good enough. That was good enough for me. He gives me a wry smile, and I wouldn't want him, as he comes to the final hurdle at Cheltenham, I wouldn't want him contesting the one that I've backed. I wouldn't want him running against me, because I appreciate if he's got to that point and he's still in there, that his strength and power would be a big danger to whoever I pick out, or whoever I picked out coming up that hill. He's a wonderful.
It was almost like a mugging, Tanya, in that race. I thought Elizabeth was such a strong contest, but it was almost like in Atlantic. You've seen the replay, and he's clear. And he's going to win. You're just wondering how far he extends. And then, hold on a minute, what's that?
But he got himself so far behind because Darrell was sort of making him go over the hurdles and letting him do it rather than Reading Tommy Wrong's mind up. I do appreciate that, and I do commend Darrell for that. Just letting the horse do it himself, and look how he's been rewarded, because if you try and ask a horse and then it makes its mistake, then you expend too much energy. Mm-hmm. Whereas the horse just kept ploughing through. So he's got some constitution, Reading Tommy Wrong, real constitution. And he puts a good marker up in the Ballymore. Willie Mullins has won this umpteen times. It's the race that Nigel Twiston-Davies has won 3 times. Gordon Elliott's won a couple of times. But I might be edging for a GB win here. GB have not won it since 2017 with Willoughby Court, but we've got some potential protagonists. Harry Fry's got Gidlear Park, who looked to me at I think it was at Newbury, that jumping over the last, it was almost as if he was going down to the start. He looks huge. He looks an absolute enormous sort, but he already looks a chaser. But he's just got everything it takes potentially to win at Cheltenham. And then Johnny Delahaye has got 3 horses that he could put in there and have a massive chance with. Captain Teague, who regained his winning thread last time out in the stigmatised Chellow, I'll call it, because everyone presumes that once you win a Chellow, everyone will trot out the stat that only very few go on to win at the Cheltenham Festival. But he regained the winning thread after losing to the Evan Williams horse, Milella, at Cheltenham. Then you have Welcome to Catre, who I really do love. Got beat by Beat the Bat at Ascot. They pulled well clear, and then Welcome to Catre subsequently come out and won very easily itself. And then Johnny Delahaye and Paul Nicholls have got Envoy Allen's brother in Joya Allen, who has just raced once. You could hardly see it because Exeter on that day was just, the rain was so heavy or mixed with mist, but that's the key though, he ploughed through heavy ground. But what he has done, he finished second to tell her name in a point to point. So Joya Allen could be the surprise package of all of these, but once again, you don't know what the Paul Nicholls plans is. With that in mind, I mentioned all the 3 Paul Nicholls, so nearer to the day I'll know which one's going, but I'll go with Gidley Park. I'll put that up because we don't know how good that is. Those behind, perhaps not good enough to put up against what Reading Tommy Wrong has put up. But then Gidley Park wasn't tested. He could have gone and kept going round. And we don't know how quick he can accelerate. He looks very, very talented.
Sure does. Walk in the park, I think, Gidley Park. And, I think, there's some disparity in the anti-postmarks, as you would expect. As big as 4 teams in place, as low as 8, and 12 to 1 currently with BetMGM. I mean, there could be anything to come from there. Will we get a UK winner, Stephen?
Yeah, we might. And I tell you, one that I think won't be winning is Gidley Park. I thought he looked a rotten yoke now. First of all, the form, I wouldn't mind that anyway, but it was the way he carried himself. Like, head up in the air, didn't know what he was doing, lugged left then on the run-in. Harry Fry hates running them. He won't get that much experience. Also, he's walking the park.
We know you don't like walking the park. That's his third run, Stephen. He's entitled to be a little bit kind of new to school.
Tanya's a knowledgeable old soul. Tanya, have a guess how many walk in the parks have achieved an official rating of 150. No, it's obviously do that if a tour loads them.
Yeah.
How many walk in the parks would you say?
No, go on. You're going to tell me.
Well, I'll tell you. Yeah, 8 ever. They all flatter. They flatter to deceive. They seem to be good young horses that don't progress, and he looks like they all have a quirk. That's the Monsieur coming down now as well.
He didn't look as though he was showboating, though, did he? He just, as you said, looked a disaster on the.
I thought he looked a difficult ride. I thought he hung up the straight after the last. I didn't like his head carriage. Typical walk in the park. Couldn't have him now. Like presenting at 43 horses, 150 plus, Flemingford 42. Walk in the park isn't young. He's had a lot. He just, I don't know. They don't train on, if you ask me, to the extent of other sires. Westerner be like an equivalent sire, and he's 20. I just don't like walking the parks as a general rule, and he was a prime example of one now, I thought. But yeah, an English winner I think is possible. A bit of a mad one now, but I was hugely impressed, and I'd love to hear what Tanya thinks, because she'd be more in tune with the UK form. I was hugely impressed with Manila Missile. He's obviously not flashy at home, but he fairly travelled into that Ballymore now, and I didn't think he needed to go up and trip. Yes, he was getting a little bit away from Captain Teague, but come the line, and I know the big Diane was upside him on the run, but come the line, he really went away from him well. I backed him last night at 130 on the exchange. I just thought that was a crazy price, given that this is the trip for him. I hope the horse is okay. I hope they get another one into him. Yeah. But arguably, certainly the best piece of Novice Hurdle form in the UK, I would say. So yeah, I just think he's 50 to 1. Let me check what he is with our good sponsors at BetMGM, who I'm sure will be giving us loads of tickets and bringing us the boxes and stuff. We better be nice.
33 to 1, the Missile.
33 to 1. Yeah, like I just think he's been underrated, and I think the UK could have one there because God knows what's going to progress in the Irish at the moment, because it's just like 5 or 6 out of the top 7 in the betting are Willie Mullins, and we don't know where they're going to go.
Yeah,
I was thought that with Manila Missile, I was flagging him up for Friday, but if he does appear in the Albert Bartlett, if he does appear here, you know what was wrong with the Manila Missile? Literally nothing. All the talk was, Captain, what happened to Captain Teague? There was no, oh, well done, Manila Missile. And then when Captain Teague reappeared, it was Captain Teague was beat last time out, but there's no mention of who by.
Yeah,
And
I think Captain Teague ran his race at Cheltenham. I think he was beaten by a horse on the day. Now at the weights they'd be the same horse. I think he was getting £3.
Yeah,
he's actually
like
getting five pounds that
yeah.
day. But Manila Missile did really well at the end, and he's entitled to come on again, I would have thought.
He jumped as if he'd had about 5 or 6 hurdle races. Adam Wedge was brilliant in the fact that the line that he took on Manila Missile, because he went on the inside line to get first run on Captain Teague, but then he showed himself as equal, if not miles better, as he did in the race itself, and he will come on for that run. So yes, I don't. I'm with you there, but I thought he might go up in trip, but he's more than capable. He might, but who's to say? And at those prices, that is absolutely ludicrous, as you said.
Another Dungarvan. I didn't even realise now. I'm after clicking into him, and I didn't know this, but bred by Michael Tobin, who's another Dungarvan man. So there's another reason to support the horse. The Dungarvan connection with racing never ends.
The stars are aligning for you, Mr. Cass. If Manila Missile turns up here at, well, it wouldn't be a whopping price if it does turn up, because things will have gone well in between. I'd imagine that will be an interesting run. Evan Williams, of course. Go on, Demo. Let's have a go at the Ballymore. You're up.
Yeah, I do value that Nace race very much so. As much as Reading Tommy Wrong won, I do think Daryl Jacob rode them all to sleep. I think if Paul Townend could get that ride back again, he wouldn't have made so much use of an Atlantique, who I actually like for this race very much so. I thought that Atlantique had to beat about 3 horses and then just couldn't hold off Reading Tommy Wrong. He
didn't know that one was still there.
Yeah, like, you know, he just literally he beat off Firefox, and then Paul Townend must have thought I have this one, and then all of a sudden Reading Tommy Wrong, who also hit the last, like it was a super run. But Reading Tommy Wrong for me would scream out to me as being a bit of a Albert Bartlett horse potentially, and I'd be looking here at Atlantique. I think the way Willie Mullins spoke afterwards as well was he said that Daryl Jacob mugged them all, basically, is what he said, and he said that we won't be making as much use of Atlantique again. I think Paul Townend
won't be letting that happen again.
And a bit more of a conservative ride, and I do think that horse wins that race, and I do think we'd be looking at a decently strong favourite, because as much as I agree that I do think Ballyburn goes up in trip, I think they're going to run Ballyburn in the Supreme. Willie Mullins always has one main horse, and the rest of them get based off at Facile Vega. And then basically he plots the rest of them around that one main horse. It has screamed all season that Ballyburn is their main novice hurdler, and it does strike me that he will end up in the Supreme. I really like Atlantique. I was more than willing to forgive that effort, especially on the ground, and I just think a more conservative ride, 9 to 1 with BetMGM, I think he'd be much, much shorter on the day.
Yeah, I think you might have hit the nail there. If you can get the Willie Mullins bingo right, I think this will be favourite for the race when we get there on the day. And if that's the case, then those prices look very big now. You're obviously looking at plenty of unbeaten flesh at bigger prices around the place. This one has got the beat on its card already. But yeah, if you stop that replay, 10 seconds before they hit the line, he's going to go and win 4 or 5 lengths, and in a very, very hot race. So yeah, I can see that could be market leader. That'd be my fancy for it. I think that would go favourite for this race anyway. That's Atlantique. If there's no chat on this contest, we will move to the Albert Bartlett, and Reading Tommy Wrong. This could be where it goes, and this could be the favourite for this race, Demo.
It could easily. I think that High Class Hero, they do seem to really like him. There's a lot of talk about him. I'm not mad about him now at all, but they do seem to be talking a lot about him. I really like Loughlin here, Dean. I just thought what he did at Limerick at Christmas time was really, really good. Still looked like a bit of a dope, jumping at times, was still has to get there. But again, Willie Mullen's horses, Willie does not school them, so they all improve as they race on. But this lad, I just loved the way that he picked up from what was a bit of a dawdle. He held them all off. He had them beaten, and then they did fly back at him, and he was able to hold them off. That's a serious trial for this race. I have got flack from Stephen Cass in the past about tipping horses.
Oh, Limerick. Heavy ground Limerick form. You can't get enough of it, you.
Dermo loves it.
It's my third time ever tipping a horse in the race. But the Loughlin, I do really like him. I liked him last season. Brian Hayes actually put him up as one of his horses to follow last season. He really liked him as a bumper horse. I kind of tracked him through because of that. And I really liked it. Sean O'Keefe gave him a screaming ride as well. And while we'll know an awful lot more after the DRF, I do think that this lad could well go in as maybe the second or third of Willie Mullins' horse in this, but he's won the Albert Bartlett with horses of that ilk before.
Yeah, it's not always the one you think in that race. It's attritional stuff.
Yeah. I don't think they know from homework really with staying novices half the time really, because they're all plodders. So I think the track teaches us more. So Loughlin for me, Dean, I'm very keen on him. Very, very
14 to 1 currently with the sponsors at BetMGM's Loughlin. They go reading Tommy wrong 8, 12 to 1 high class hero we just mentioned there. Ballymore. I think this is the least likely race this one's going to turn up. It's in 16 to 1. You've got a couple of the other ones we've already discussed. Lecky Watson, Captain Teagle in there around that price. Stephen Cass.
Yeah, Loughlin's interesting. I think that Limerick race, even though they kind of finished it in a heap, wasn't that bad because they went no pace, so they kind of had no choice but to finish in a heap. The thing with Loughlin is he's absolutely enormous, and I mean enormous now. He was twice as big as everything else in that Limerick race. And the hurly-burly of an Albert Bartlett, and this will be a big field because it is very, very open, I think, and the English have quite a few as well. So, like, you're going to get 20 runners in this. Not sure the hurly-burly of an Albert Bartlett will suit him, but I can definitely see where Dermot's coming from, and he is a big price. The one I like is Stellar Story. Ye all love Il Atlantique, who's the soft old yoke in a finish, but this fella even managed to beat him in a bumper, which wouldn't have been his trip. He's an absolute stayer. Like, I think he's a full brother to the Storyteller. Actually looks very like him. So he to win 2 out of 3 bumpers was good going. Like, he finished ahead of Caldwell Potter as well when he won his bumper, beating Atlantique. Very good form. He beat Largy Hill then in a 2.5 mile maiden hurdle, and then I think Slade Steele is really, really, really good, and he was third to him, slightly outpaced. Needs to go up and trip. Went up and trip at Limerick, and I think he was outridden at Limerick. So I actually can't remember who was riding it, but Sean O'Keefe was riding Dunamila, okay. And Sean O'Keefe was riding Loughlin, and I thought he stole the race by kicking on there off the bend at Limerick. Stellar Story overjumped the second last, got a few lengths back, and he was flying home. Definitely, if it was another furlong at Limerick, Stellar Story would have finished ahead of Loughlin. I think 3 miles Cheltenham will really suit him because it's going to be a real grind, especially if they got soft ground. He's 12 to 1 for the DRF for the 2 mile 6 race. I don't think that's a bad price at all, but I think there's only one race for this fella. I mean, he's kind of 25 to 1 for this race, and it's the only race he can go for, and he's just a real grinder, stayer. So Stellar Story, and he'll have plenty of experience by the time the race comes. Form is very good. Yeah, really like him.
That Limerick heavy ground form, Stephen. That's what you want.
I love it. I'm learning from the master.
That's what you want. 20 to 1 with BetMGM and Stellar Story to turn around the bit of form that it has from Limerick on that heavy ground with Loughlin. Okay, good shout. All right, Tanya, over to you for the potato race, as they call it, the Albert Bartlett.
Yeah.
You need a different kind of horse here, and this is going to be competitive.
You do. It's not one for the favourites either. It was first run in 2005. It's not been great at all for the favourites. It's you need a different kind of horses. You mentioned you need a horse that maybe have run 3 or 4 times prior to Cheltenham. Shown its hand, maybe been beaten a few times as well. So with that, in mind, I thought the Manila Missile, even though it's run so well, that might be here. But that aside, because there's a decision that maybe he wins the Ballymore. How about I Will Be By for Willie, who won on New Year's Day at Fairyhouse. He wasn't even the favourite that day. My trump card was the favourite that day. And kind of surprised in the fact that it was such a smooth hurdler. The hurdles and even coming in the closing stages, the last two hurdles, when you are a novice and you ought to be getting tired and you ought to be inexperienced, he sort of popped over the final hurdle against my trump card and just galloped away. And I think there's plenty of stamina in there as well. He impressed. He got lost on New Year's Day because as the festive period, there's so much more to be looking at, and he's nice odds, and many people automatically go towards the top of the market. That's the trap normally with the Albert Bartlett, and he's sort of not really mentioned at all. I will be by, so he's going to be a bit of value. He's a fair price, isn't he? I will be by.
100% is a fair price. I was actually there that day, and it was very, very smooth. It was at Fairyhouse. I brought the kids along, and they backed it, so we were all.
Was that because he was grey, or
they went with the jockey and the one that was a slightly better price than the trump card. And we were jumping up and down watching it win, and you knew it was going to win 2 out. You knew how smoothly it was traveling, even though the odds would have told you that it wasn't there. It wasn't fancy to go and beat the favourite there. I think that run, as you're right, because there's so much going on that day, will get slightly overlooked. I will be by. It's 20 to 1 currently.
Nice.
GM for this, and why not? Fairyhouse form. It takes a good. That hill is stiff enough at Fairyhouse. It's deceiving, and I do like to take that form always forward to Cheltenham. Okay, there's a live chance there at big price from a strong yard who's already got decent form. Okay, interesting one to throw into the mix there. We've got one more race in this kind of novices division. You can go pick out a few others for anything else if you want. But Dermo, you put in here, let's do the Triumph Hurdle quickly. Is that because Burdett Road is an absolute stone cold certainty? Cannot be beat. Triumph is done. Don't care who turns up. There isn't a horse out there that can touch this. Is that what you were going to say?
Not quite. I do really like him. He's very, very good. He's plenty short, really. But I really liked what he did at Cheltenham that day as well. Harry Cobden really gave him a great education, and Harry actually left plenty to do. Really, I'd say Harry didn't mind if he was beaten really that day. But
very educational and still destroyed them.
Still won, which is a sign of a very good horse. Obviously really, really highly rated in the flat. So yeah, look, he's extremely interesting. I just kind of like the grade 2 form from Christmas, and I think because Mighty Bandit collapsed in that race, that again we get stuck on that, and then we never seem to give, when a strong favourite collapses, we don't then give the winner any praise at all. Calicante was very good, and that horse is 16 to 1 for a Triumph. What that horse did that day was excellent, and saw off a very decent field away from Mighty Bandit. Handled the ground, won't mind it a bit better. 16 to 1 for a grade 2 winner. We will learn an awful lot more, but I know we love backing promise with horses, but this horse has done it at a decent level already, and for some reason it's 16 to 1. So yeah, that's where I'd be leaning anyway.
Fair enough. Okay, Calicante, of course, is the Rob Cole Gordon Elliott horse. Dan Gilligan was on board that day. You're right. Everyone was talking about Mike Bandit, so that race kind of didn't go the way it planned. Wonder what's wrong with that horse rather than what happened. Fair enough. It won't be Burdett Road though. Anyway, Tanya. So does it matter?
Of course it matters. 5 of the last 10 favourites have won this race. Willie's won it for the 3 of the last 4 years. Nicky Henderson's won it 7 years. I wouldn't say it wouldn't be Burdett Road, but I wouldn't. He's very, very short now. We don't know where. There's a lot of indecision where Burdett Road goes next. So is he going to go to the Dublin Racing Festival? It'd be lovely if he could, or is he going to go straight to Cheltenham? We know the potent finishing kick now, and we just can't wait to see him again now.
See, with a horse like that, Tanya, sorry to labour on it. I love this horse, right? But he's got so much already in the book. He's not your typical one coming to this. Sometimes you wait to see Adonis, and they've only run once or twice, and they're straight into the market. This one's been around the block. It's been to all the big battles on the flat. I don't know if they get another run or don't. Don't think it matters. But go on, what do you actually like?
I love Stormheart. Okay. So bring Burdett Road on. Bring him on. Bring him on in the Dublin Festival. Stormheart was very, very impressive at Punchestown on New Year's Eve. Perhaps it's asking a bit much to meet Burdett Road at this point, but it'd be lovely to meet him at the Cheltenham Festival with Stormheart. He's a lovely big sort. I find with the Cheltenham Festival, many people fall in the trap that, yes, it is over the 2 miles, but you want further for this. You really do want that little bit extra. Because and also how many runners will turn out because of the sort of dilution of the races. Less and less horses have been turning up for this contest, so maybe the pace will be a lot not Burdett Road like. He'll probably want to run off a fast pace. There's others to consider. There is Salva of Gary Moore's, who didn't stop to win the finale at Chepstow, but we just don't know how strong that form is, but he keeps producing good runs.
Nicky Henderson, Tanya, if I can interrupt on Salver, he won the finale by 21 lengths, and he's been given a mark of 128. Like, you have to just hold on to him and go for the boot.
You've got to see their stars. There's money out there.
But it's Gary Moore. They might go for Cheltenham at the end of the month and ruin his handicap mark and finish 7th in the Triumph. But they should be hanging on to him for the Boodles and not running in the Triumph, I would have thought.
Nick is rubbing his hands together, perhaps. He ran Sergino on Boxing Day, the 27th of December at Kempton. And he's won this race many, many times before. And Sergino, I think, won a Kempton race that Nicky's won a few times before and come this route. So Sergino, we don't know how good that will be, and has been quite muted in talk. No one's mentioned Sergino, and then there's Bunting as well. So I get what you're saying about Salva. I was just throwing up possibilities. I mean, I'm Stormheart camp. I am in a Stormheart camp.
Yeah. And it is possible that Burdett Road return to the DRF and take on Stormheart at a minute. Looking at the prices, I think they're going Burdett's 8 Stormheart 2s. That tells you what the market already thinks of Tanya's fancy there. Stormheart is not favourite, though, for the Triumph. Stephen, what do you like?
Well, I think they'd be mad now to go. Like, it's hard enough taking on Willie in a home match in England, but they'd be mad to come over for further one. Because there is, I think, didn't Fakir do Dairies? Isn't there? There's a juvenile race at Cheltenham Trials Day. There always has been anyway, so I presume there still is. So I mean, that's the race to go for.
They'll have another option. They don't have to come to Ireland. They can stamp their authority at Prestbury Park when it matters. Yeah,
and I'm all for the mid-season clashes, but if I was training Burnett Road or owning them, I'd be like, look, we'll take on Willie at Cheltenham. wait for that. I just don't. It wouldn't make sense to have such a hard race when you don't need to. Now, I do think that horse, you're saying he's loads of experience. He did everything wrong at Huntingdon and he did everything wrong at Cheltenham. He's way too keen. He's not a good jumper. They dropped him out the last day. I think he's a bad favourite. Now, I napped him the last day, Dean, I've nothing against the horse. I love him, but I couldn't have him on my mind in a Triumph Hurdle, which is a staying race on the new course. Like, it's just not going to suit him, I don't think. Sergino is very babyish. Again, you'd like to see him show more. I agree with Tanya. I thought Stormheart he just took your eye out now. He has a serious turn of foot and he's a stayer at the trip. My worry with him would be he's got quite a bit of knee action. By Storm the Stars as well, those pedigrees, they like soft ground, and geez, if the ground was drying out the Friday now, I'd be going off him. But he's 2-1 favourite at the moment for the DRF. If he goes and wins that, he's kind of horse could be 6-4 on the day. So I think 7-1 is fine. He'd be definitely my most likely winner. And another betting angle in Telato of Joseph's. So he's going to Leopardstown, definitely. Joseph said that on the Nick Luck podcast. It'd be very unlike Joseph to bother going to the Triumph unless he'd back off a horse generally. Like, he didn't run Nose at the Triumph. He doesn't run too many. He tends to go easy on them when they're young anyway. So he nearly wanted to be winning at Leopardstown to go to the Triumph, and he's 16-1 no bet. So that'd be kind of a betting angle into Lotto. I think that's a good bet, but at the same time, I think Stormheart's the most likely winner. And I'm going to name a completely this is crazy now. This he'd be.
Do we have 100 to 1 shot? 200 to 1.
No,
Okay,
this thing. He's not even on the exchange, and he'd be 1,000 if he was, right. Mr. Lincoln is his name. He was good. He was 86 on the flat, like a really good horse. He was second to Bunting at Limerick, and he really was. He travelled really well that day. So if he wins a maiden hurdle and goes, he'll be 100, 200 to 1 on the day. And he's the kind of horse, given he's such a travelling thing, he could place. But I don't want to talk too much about him.
That's fine.
I think Stormheart's the most likely winner. And Interlotto at 16 to 1 non-runner bet is a good bet to do, because you'll probably just get your stake back, or he'll be coming here having won at Leopardstown.
Thank you. You know, as is kind of my catchphrase here, something has to finish second at Burdett Road. I admire how much effort has been put in to try and find
Have you done a Burdett Road Factophile double?
100% I have. Of course I have.
You'll quit the. I'm going to host.
You'd love a shot full of me.
I'll host next year when you're retired. Yeah.
Yeah. That's fine. Hey, look, I really enjoyed that. We got through, I think, pretty much everything we wanted to talk about there. There is one more line in the agenda, of course, and that was: is there an anti-post bet there? I mean, we've mentioned plenty of them through the course of going through the races. If you could only have one, Demon, which horse are you backing out of all those races anti-post right now?
The one I'm backing anti-post right now is Fire and Glory at 14 to 1. Just far too big a price. Yeah, too big.
Yeah. Overlooked after that fall. You'd imagine he'll come out and do something good in between now and then. Stephen Cass?
Oh, well, I backed a few of Malaga.
Well, you give us a few already, yeah.
I have backed Manila Missile. I did back Stormheart, but I think that nearly leave it at 7s. I backed Manila Missile, and I did back. Now, this is probably when you're going to get your money back on. But I think Slade Steele's a really good horse, and that non-runner bet 20 to 1 for the Supreme. He's only going there, I think, nearly if he wins at Leopardstown. So I think that's the best, most sensible bet to do at the moment. Okay.
Tanya, there were a few from you left field during the course of the ramblings today. If you had to just nail one, just make sure you had the voucher.
I will be by in the Albert Bartlett. Yeah, I just think that it's wonderful. When you said this weekend it was so busy, if we go back this weekend, there's so many horses that you could find, and that's what happened with I Will Be By on New Year's Day, and that would be the
Fair. Okay, I thought the most interesting thing to come out of this, and it is purely like, you know, value isn't always the driver of this. You look at that market for the Ballymore as it is. I do think that Ante is going to go off favourite there currently, close to double figures. That's probably the safest proposition out there. Loads of potential, loads of unbeaten horses that we talked about. I do think that one should be in there. And Burdett Road will win the Triumph. It's been my absolute pleasure to talk to Stephen Cass, Tanya Stevenson, and David Nolan on the Racehour, brought to you with Gambling.com. And of course, BetMGM. Welcome aboard, chaps. We'll be integrating more as we go through the course of the rest of the National Hunt season. My thanks to Tanya, Stephen, Derma. This has been the Racehour.
Relentless, remorseless, and pounding towards